Hello and welcome to Move the Line, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm Ryan Noonan, joined here, as always, by my friends to talk NFL Week 9 sides and totals. Joined here, as always, by Connor Allen and Sharp Clark. Connor, go to you first. What's going on, buddy?
Not much. Coming off of a great week. One of the best weeks I've had, honestly, in a while, which is pretty fun. Went 11-4 in the prop streets. Had some very lucky beats, but a lot of right beats. You know, we won a lot of props by like 30, 40 yards, which always feels good. So, yeah, it's good. Crushing those streets. Sides and total streets going well for me as well. You know, here and there I basically bet everything we talk about in the show and, going well. So, it's been a lot of fun so far.
Always feels good when you're up on top, right? It feels like you're untouchable no matter what you're doing.
Oh,
I saw you roll into a snow parlay last night, and then the Mac
Did you see that? I won $2,700 on a $150 Mac 6-leg all under parlay because someone tweeted out that there was like an unbelievable amount of snow. And so I was like walking out of the gym, like I'm not even paying attention. I don't know a single player on either team. And so I'm just like, all right, well, why not? Like I'll just bet every single both quarterback unders and every single receiver under listed. So I bet every single receiver under listed, and it stopped snowing literally the moment the game started, and the field was totally cleared, and it still hit anyways. I mean, I'm running unbelievably pure right now.
Yeah, that's something right there. That's good on you. I saw this morning. I wanted to get, to be annoyed at you and give me a heads up, man. But I'll let you off based on the story there.
It's like literally 5 minutes before the game started. I didn't even get prize pick shit in. I literally was like Caesars just bumped it all, and then I just went for like 17-1 parlay or whatever.
Love to see it. Good job. Nice hit there. Clark, what's going on, buddy? Week 9, grind continues. How we doing?
Yeah, I'm on a cooler, whatever the opposite of a heater is right now. So trying to trust the process and remind myself, I've got several years of doing this, and I'm, a little bit gun shy just because there's certain teams you start to question whether or not, am I missing something about this team? And so probably a lighter week for me, but one that I'm hoping to kind of just, if I could just squeeze out a small profit, get back on track, that's the goal.
Yeah. I mean, look, transparency. This time last year, I was down. I was negative at this point last year. I think Connor, you were too, or close.
Yep.
It's not where we're at right now, but it happens. We bounced back. We had a positive year. You had, I think, a couple of these highs and lows last year. You finished up comfortably on the year. It's just how it goes. It stinks when you're in it. That's why we talk about managing your units and your bankroll very carefully so that you aren't overextending yourself when things are going well, because there is an inevitable bounce back. You can have a good read on a game and lose the bet. It happens all the time. I don't feel very often where, I'm sitting on Sunday night kind of reviewing what went right and what went wrong, where I'm like, well, I think I misread this. It happens, at least in what I'm doing in prop wise, sides and totals, maybe you can feel a little bit different, but sometimes on the prop side, I'm just like, well, yeah, that's going to happen. Variance happens, made a bet on a Monday night game. I love that bet. I'd make that bet if that game's being played again tomorrow. Well, all of us, I need a cornerback to get tackles, and the Raiders completed 4 passes to their wide receivers. That bet's going to lose every single time. But if you tell me ahead of time that the Raiders are only going to complete 4 passes to their wide receivers, I'm making some very different bets, right? So we don't have the, the advantage of foresight here. It happens, ride it out. Again, I love your process. I think it's unique in the space, and I'm excited to be a part of riding the wave back up, and we'll get it started here in week 9. Just a very, very interesting week here. Again, reminder to folks, 3 of us are going to be here every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern on our 4 for 4 Bets YouTube channel. Should be able to find the podcast every Wednesday evening. Subscribe to both so you don't miss a show. This is free content from us. Supporting it goes a long way in helping us continue to bring the very best content and tools in the industry. Take a second, click subscribe, click a like, thumbs up, all those things, comments. Goes a long way in helping us. If you're hanging out with us on YouTube, comment, let us know what your favorite look here on the board is, sides and total wise, for week 9. We'll be back on Friday, as always, as well, on the 4 for 4 Bets YouTube channel at 3 p.m. Eastern. Connor, myself, and John Hyslop from Odds Jam to talk props. Having a lot of fun, a lot of success on that show. Again, that's why you subscribe. You don't miss an episode. Great time to scoop up the betting subscription. If you somehow missed our Halloween sale, that's a bummer. Insane deal that I think is just way too cheap, to be honest. But we get, I think, consulted in that conversation, but not really. We don't have a say. It's basically like, hey, we're going to do this. And, people, hopefully you're here maybe for the first time because you found the deal on Twitter and you're like, hey, these guys have a show as well. We'll check it out. Appreciate you hanging out with us for the first time. But if you haven't, great time to still scoop up the betting sub. The betting sub gets access to everything. So even if you're still playing DFS, you're playing your season-long league, you want all the articles, tools, rankings, projections, all that stuff, the betting sub gets all of it. And then you get access to the Discord, which is where all of our official plays, the three of us all push those out through a Discord. It's a great community. We're betting NBA extensively now too. Kevin O'Brien off to a great start. I think 3 or 4-0 last night. They're firing bets in there today. Very, very active Discord. If you play in any of the pick'em sites, Prize Picks, Underdog, Vivid Picks, we have plays, channels, discussions there as well. We have, plenty of people in the Discord that aren't in legal states that are, using some of the stuff to, pick off some of the pick'em games as well. So use our promo code YouTube. It's going to get you 25% off. It's already discounted. Promo code gets you another 25% on top of that. So a great deal, 444.com/plans. All right. Interesting slate of games, guys. There are, I saw somewhere today, depending on like some of the stuff we have what goes on in Arizona or something like that, or like up to like 9 backup quarterbacks as we record here on a Wednesday afternoon. There's a lot of uncertainty in those matchups, and that, hey, if you don't know who the quarterback is, some of those are still pending. It makes it pretty hard to handicap that game. So we're going to skip a lot of those. We happen to have 4 fantastic games. A friend of the show, Sam Hoppin, he does like an aggregate power rankings where he pulls from a lot of the reputable sites out there and makes his own power rankings. We have 3, you look at like the top 11, again, arbitrary, but 3 teams in that top 11 on a bye this week. San Francisco, Detroit, Jacksonville. The other 8 teams are basically, they're all head to head. So we're going to talk about those 4 games because they're all great. If we have any thoughts on the end, we'll shoot it to the guys, let them fire off any other thoughts they have in terms of sides and totals for the rest of the board. But we'll get started with our Germany game. First of 2 in Germany. We have a less exciting Colts-Patriots matchup ahead of us next week in Germany, but Miami and Kansas City are in Frankfurt. This is Kansas City -1.5. I believe across the board here. I shut my out screen and you guys can tell me if it's different. I think that's correct. 50.5 is the total as well. Obviously a massively intriguing matchup. Chiefs looking to bounce back. Disappointing loss in Denver. In the division, things get wonky. And then obviously Mahomes popped up on the injury report over the weekend with a case of the flu. Obviously he was not 100% there. This one's going to be great. You get the whole Tyreek revenge narrative here, Clark, as well. I'll let you get started with Dolphins Chiefs.
This is a game I've been excited about all year. Honestly, the Chiefs defense has obviously outperformed expectations this season, but they haven't yet faced an offense like the Dolphins with the amount of speed they have on the outside. And so I think the big question for this game is how the Chiefs can stop the Dolphins, or if they can stop the Dolphins. Steve Spagnuolo's approach has always been pretty effective against kind of elite quarterback-led teams. Like he's really good at getting pressure on pocket passers and really disrupting them out of what they want to do, their A game. But the Dolphins offense is so dynamic and so diverse that I don't think that is really going to work. I think the Dolphins are going to have some success. I think they're going to be able to, capitalize on wherever there's space in the secondary. The Chiefs have some pretty good cornerbacks, but the Dolphins have ways of mitigating that by, creating open spaces in the zone. And Tua is so fast that the interior pressure that Chris Jones typically brings, I just don't think it's going to get home. So I think this is a spot where the Dolphins can keep up. I don't think we need to worry about the Chiefs offense. They had a tough game against Denver, but every good team has tough games like that. And I didn't really see anything on the film that was, overly concerning. The Broncos had a good defensive game plan, and obviously Patrick Mahomes may not have been 100%, but I think he'll be back for this one. This is a game where I think both teams are going to have a hard time pulling away from the other team because both offenses, when kind of pushed, with their backs against the wall, play really well. Like the one thing that's really impressed me about the Dolphins is their 3rd down conversion rates, even in difficult 3rd down spots. Like Tua has been delivering the ball in tight windows in those situations past the line of scrimmage, which is really the key to, an offense that's playing from behind. So even though they got blown out by Buffalo and Philadelphia, I think this is a spot where this should go down to the wire. And I think there's extra value on the teaser leg with the Dolphins, getting it up above 7 or 8. I mean, I think the line came down from 2.5 to 1.5 today. I still like it at +7.5, just because this is a game that I don't see either team pulling away, but I don't want to bet on the Dolphins on the money line just because that requires Patrick Mahomes to fail to deliver in the clutch in a close game. And that's not a situation I ever want to find myself in with my bet. So for me, it's lean Dolphins, but I'd rather play the teaser than the side in this one.
Connor Clark touched on it real quick there. This is basically Miami's third chance to step up in class. And look, this is kind of a increasingly prevalent narrative that they basically beat up on bottom feeders. They can't, or at least haven't yet been able to hang with the upper echelon teams. Now, I think it's an inarguable fact as of now. I sort of think it's a nonsense in terms of how it pertains to who the Dolphins truly are as a team or where they're going to be at the end of the year. It gets harder and harder to defend that if they can't be competitive here. Again, they're getting healthy. I think there's some really encouraging things going on in Miami too. Like Jalen Phillips looks to be back to who we thought he was going to be earlier in the season, full strength, looking really good. Tough challenge here against Patrick Mahomes, who just doesn't get pressured a lot. Jalen Ramsey came back last week, made an immediate impact. Javon Holland's going to be back here. He cleared concussion protocol after missing last week. And even Teron Armstead is traveling to Germany here too. So kind of good news going on there in Miami. This one's going to be fun. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you hit on most of the key points here. One interesting thing, I think it's a lot of this is going to depend on pressure. And Clark said it, and I think mentioned it there that maybe the interior pressure won't get home. But I think that it's one of the keys in this game because under pressure, Tua Tagovailoa's completion rate, 37.4%, below his regular completion rate when kept clean. It's basically only ahead of Jimmy Garoppolo in terms of splits of kept clean versus pressure. We saw that in the Philadelphia game, him crumble a little bit. We saw that in the Buffalo game at certain times. I think that's kind of a big deal here. He's also averaging 3.7 fewer yards per attempt when pressured compared to a clean pocket. And so I think that's kind of interesting when we consider this game as a whole because the Chiefs defense has I think certainly outplayed their billing. And this is, on the other hand, the toughest test that they faced by far. They've played well against Detroit. They played well against Jacksonville, played well against the Chargers. But I think that this Miami offense is on another level than those teams right now. And so when we factor all of that in, it's almost like a strength on strength, but neither of them are proven. And that's not something that I'd particularly like to bet into. I feel like I need to have a strong angle or some kind of case of okay, well, they've played well against, this type of defense here. And we can project that very easily. So I think that they'll probably still have success, but I don't feel super confident in it. And then on the other side here, the Dolphins defense, again, getting way healthier. They've played against three good offenses so far. They've allowed 34, 48, and 31 points in those games. Kansas City's offense hasn't played particularly well or up to their standards as of late, but I think that's more of a blip than something we'll see consistently. I mean, basically every year we see one or two games where Mahomes and Chiefs offense just doesn't really look that good. And then it's literally a non-issue right after that. So yeah, I think for me, it's kind of a stay away. I'm just kind of excited to watch the game because I don't have a strong lean. I think we took some look at action on Kansas City, but I don't feel awesome about it. So yeah, I really don't know, honestly, in terms of the take. This is probably the game that I have the least skin in the game on among the ones we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard. There was some, interesting look ahead action there, but yeah, I want to buy into Miami. I do think Miami is a team that is better than just a team that's going to beat up on, a good, bad team, not even a good, bad team, but just a team that's going to pick off of really bad teams. I do think that they're better than that. Part of it's been the defense has been oftentimes in these matchups when we talked about the Bills game and who the Bills were at the time, the Philadelphia game. The Miami defense was clearly the worst unit on the field. That might be the case again, but I do feel like that unit in general is getting significantly better, Clark. So I feel like we're kind of trending in the right direction. I worry a little bit about your teaser take, though, just because of, again, like we talked about it before, I think you like it when it gets a little bit higher in terms of the, over under. It makes me a little bit nervous in terms of the, just the variability of the game in terms of it being a high scoring contest.
Yeah, I like high totals when you're taking the 2.5 or the 1.5 up past the 7 or the 8. I don't like it as much bringing it down.
Okay, that makes sense.
The upwards, Wong, because what a high total indicates is that both offenses are able to score, and when the game flow is such that a team has a big lead, that really favors the offense, or it favors the other team's offense, because you get more aggressive and all that kind of stuff. So I like either of these teams in comeback mode. I like either of these teams playing from behind. It's going to be a difficult game to put the other team away. And the Chiefs don't run the ball particularly well. So if they're in the second half and, they're trying to run the clock out, they're just not at their best when they're doing that. I also I'm not overly concerned about the Chiefs offense. I say this every week, but it's week 9. And if they don't figure out their receivers, if they don't get in a position where Mahomes knows who he can trust downfield, as we approach the playoffs, I do start to get concerned about the Chiefs. It's kind of like they've got time to figure it out. But last week it wasn't figured out, and that was week 8, week 9 going against a healthier secondary probably against Miami. If they don't figure it out here, I think it is time to start worrying about what the Chiefs are going to look like, down the stretch. They need to figure it out at some point.
Just get Rashee Rice on the field more, Connor, right? Like,
yeah, what the hell? I mean, he hasn't cleared a 60% route rate the entire season. This man should be playing every snap. We're rolling out like bums, like literally MBS and Sky Moore are scrubs. Like, get him off the field. I also want to add that I think that there's a pretty big advantage here for Miami in the running game offensively against the Chiefs run defense. They just haven't played all that well. Like 27th in rushing success rate. They've gotten, kind of gashed from the ground the last 2 weeks. I think 31st in run DPA. So like, I think there's a path here where maybe it's not that the Dolphins go run heavy, but they might use kind of the run to like offset, any pressure if they really think that that's an issue. So, I think there's multiple ways here that they get there offensively. So that could be something worth watching as well.
And the Chiefs getting thin at linebacker. Obviously, Nick Bolton, as mentioned here in the chat by Adam, he gets it. Big Nick Bolton fan here. Miss him out for the year. Willie Gay, one of their other linebackers, hurt his tailbone, and it seems like they're debating whether or not Willie Gay goes on IR or not. So that sounds like Willie Gay probably not active in this game either. So they're getting pretty thin in the middle of the field.
And we saw on Monday Night Football with the Lions and Raiders what happens when you lose all your linebackers, because the Raiders lost all their linebackers during that game, and the Lions were just like, okay, we'll get 6 yards on every run. It was ridiculous. So that is definitely something to look out for.
Yeah. And they were playing without Diablo already, and then they lost a couple in games. So it starts to be an issue.
Before we move on, real quick, got a little mid-season update on our Coach of the Year award bet. Do you think that I get Sirianni'd again? So we released Mike McDaniel 22-1 to win Coach of the Year. He's plus 275 right now on DraftKings. Dan Campbell's plus 200. Next closest Robert Saleh plus 600. D'Amico Ryan's 10-1. What's like the gauge here? I mean, I feel pretty good about it. If he wins like 1 or 2 big games, like all I'm asking for is 1 or 2 big wins, I think McDaniel probably gets there, especially if they win the division. But I don't know. Any thoughts on this, Mark? I know I'm putting you guys on the spot. This is not part of the show sheet. So
yeah, I mean, I have it too. So last year the Sirianni thing was interesting because I went against you in a way.
I know, bastard.
I know. I mean, obviously I like it. They have to win the division. Do they have to be the 1 seed? I don't know if they have to be the 1 seed, right?
Probably not. I don't think so.
Right, because Andy Reid is now in Belichick territory. We're like, it doesn't matter. You just, Belichick, no matter what he did for a handful of years, was just never winning Coach of the Year. They could be, 15-1 back in the day. They played 16 games. Like Andy Reid is, Chiefs can be the 1 seed. That's based on expectations. We've talked about it. Like part of the play is exceeding expectations to a degree. And Miami being the 2 seed, winning the AFC at 3-1, that would be, I think, exceeding expectations. And again, like people kind of like Mike McDaniel. Did you see him in the walking into the press conference in Germany? I mean, that's fantastic stuff. Like he's, there is a narrative piece, and that was part of the Dayball handicap as well. Is like, hey, he's likable. He's in New York, big media, like all those things kind of matter. So, I mean, I like it. I don't think there's a good hedge currently. D'Amico Ryans, you could sell me on if the Jags weren't winning football games, because then I'd be interested in maybe the Texans backdooring that division. Jacksonville continues to kind of pull away, but that's all I got. Clark, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they'll need to probably win this game and then beat Buffalo. I think that's the path, and then win the division. He's a guy that people are going to want to reward, and the difference between Andy Reid and him is that when the Chiefs win, it's like, well, it's Mahomes, and when the Dolphins win, it's like, well, Tua is Tua because of McDaniel, right? So it's and Hill and all that kind of stuff. So the narrative is there for him to win, definitely.
Yeah, because again, like Shanahan might have been in the mix and would probably have been a threat for the same reasons that Clark's talking about, right? Because like the Purdy stuff gets tied up into the Shanahan stuff, and you want to find a way to reward Shanahan for that. But now they're on a little bit of a slide. Not really worried about the Niners, but they're on a little bit of a slide, and all of a sudden his odds shift. So, maybe that's the name to keep an eye on is, if the Niners just kind of got this out of their system and all of a sudden they roll and get back to who we thought they were, maybe that's a name to watch. But yeah, good point. I like I love talking the awards markets. They're interesting.
Yeah, it's a quick little interlude. So
yeah,
back to our regular scheduled programming.
Back with another great football game. Seattle is heading east. They are on the road in Baltimore, over on FanDuel. This is 5.5, 42.5 is the total. There are 6 out there, 6s in some shops, 43s.5 on the board in terms of the total. So shop around if you have a lean here. Coming into the season, I was very bullish on both of these offenses, but it's really been the outstanding play on the defensive side of the ball that I think is kind of spearheaded some of the early season success for these teams. Seattle, thought they'd be okay, but I think there's still some upside to this unit. We haven't really seen it yet. They've been really bad on third down, really bad in the red zone, which I don't think aligns with some of their other metrics. Again, kind of a small sample in terms of what they've had there. I think poaching Leonard Williams from the Giants before the trade deadline was an excellent move for Seattle, especially with some of the injuries they've had up front. Now the knock against them, especially when you're kind of looking at their defensive metrics, is they've played a fairly soft slate of quarterbacks thus far. And I think that's probably pretty fair. I'd already taken my L here. I continue to take my L on my preseason concerns around this Ravens defense. And look, they have not been healthy, and that was part of it. I just thought they were really thin in the back half and up front. And if they had injuries, it was going to be really tough for them to not get exposed. And they've held up. Massive kudos to Mike McDonald, who has really earned himself a head coaching job this offseason if he's interested. Maybe if he could survive some of this Michigan coaching stuff too, since he was the DC there for a little bit and seemed to have that little dude in his ear telling him what the plays were. But hey, that's a different show. I don't want to rile up all the Lions and Michigan fans here, but they lead the league in points per drive. They're second to Cleveland in yards per drive, EPA per play, success rate. They've been really good. The offense has kind of started to find a little bit of a gear here. Kind of let you get started with Seahawks and Ravens.
Yeah, it might become like my, flag plant team. I know we talked about it last week on the show, 40-1, scooped a little bit of that. I mean, basically no closing line value at this point. We're looking at 35-1. So it's not, no victory laps yet, but they're also getting back one of their offensive linemen, Phil Haynes. I think that's kind of been an underrated storyline. Like their offensive line's been a little bit banged up. And their defense, I mean, they've played against a super soft strength of schedule since week 4 when they got everyone back. They got Tariq Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, Jamal Adams started playing together. First in EPA per dropback, 5th in passing success rate, 2nd in explosive pass rate. Obviously, the big asterisk, they played against Arizona, the Giants, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. So that's the big thing. But they've delivered in those spots. So, like that, for the most part, that's what matters. But I think a lot of the same can be said for Baltimore. I mean, they played Detroit, and they played awesome against Detroit, but they played no one else otherwise. Their schedule has basically been garbage too. So I think some of this argument goes both ways. I want to keep buying on Seattle here. So I took a little bit of +6. I don't think I'd put the +5.5. And I thought it would be closer to +4.5, +4, to be honest. So I thought that there was a little bit of value here on the Seattle side. I don't really have too many handicaps in terms of tendencies and what's going to happen specifically here, because the Seattle team has been changing a little bit and a little bit more, I guess, variant since their new guys came back and willing to blitz at certain times and not at others. So I think that it's just kind of a lean where I sprinkled a little bit on Seattle here and want to keep buying them.
Clark, I don't want to speak for you. You were trying to sell out of your Seattle ticket last week. So I have a feel of where your lean is here, but I'll give you the floor on Seahawks and Ravens.
I think it's possible that both teams are overrated because of their, like you were saying, their schedule. But they've also been playing really well, and that's only after only 8 weeks, it's tough to parse out what is just a really, really good team taking advantage of bad matchups, or what is a not quite as good team just looking really good against bad teams. Since week 3, the Seahawks have the number 2 defense in EPA per play, and the Ravens have the number 1 defense in EPA per play. So this is going to be a really tough fought game, I think. Part of that is matchups. Part of that is just, like you said, guys got healthy. The secondary got healthy in Seattle. Now they added Leonard Williams to that front. Granted, they lost Nwosu, but this is a defensive front that I do think can get pressure. And we've seen a drastic difference in how this Ravens offense operates based on whether or not Lamar Jackson's under pressure. And that's not just this year. That's throughout his career. When he can sit back in the pocket and has time to operate, he's been lethal throughout his career, and more so this year with a much more sophisticated passing game and better weapons. But when he gets pressured, he still struggles with it. He struggles to make the right decisions. Sometimes he tries to escape, and then he finds himself on the run and kind of throwing it away or he takes a lot of sacks in those situations. I think the lack of pressure to date has really kind of inflated perception of this Ravens offense. So, laying 5.5, laying 6 is a tough thing for me to do with an offense like this against a good defense. But I haven't bet it because I don't know that the Seahawks defense is that good, right? And I'm still kind of analyzing the film, analyzing my numbers, really trying to come to ground on this game. But one thing I want to watch for is early in the game, are the Seahawks getting pressure? That's kind of the thing that I think will decide this game. And 5.5 is such a weird line. It's asking for bettors to take a strong position, saying like, please push this up to 6 or please push this down to 4. And so far, there's been a little bit of support for Baltimore, at some of the sharper books, but nothing really decisive. And I expect there will be a decisive move. I don't think this closes 5.5. I think that I just don't know what that move is, honestly. Like I'm kind of split on this game. I'm really excited to watch it. But my thoughts on the Seahawks and the Ravens have been improving every week. And that will probably continue, especially for the team that wins this one.
This is what Bill Simmons, if you're familiar with, the podcast OG, and not a great gambling podcast or great listen. I'm a Boston guy, so I'm a Simmons apologist, but they've always dubbed this the Vegas zone. Basically, we're like, this is like Vegas throwing their hands up and being like, you tell us where this should go. We know it shouldn't be 3.5. It's not 6. Kind of, let you, move this around for us. It's kind of we're in the Vegas zone. The Seahawks get, or at least the way that I think they're going to be constructed now with Williams and Draymond Jones, they're going to get pressure in a unorthodox way too. It's going to be through the middle of the line. They don't have great edge rushers. They brought Frank Clark back, losing Owosu for the season. Like, I feel like, and there's, that's, I think, sometimes problematic for quarterbacks too, because the first thing you see is coming right down the middle. So if that ends up working for them with this move, I think we'll get a sense of it, like you're saying, Clark, pretty early in this game. If they're able to collapse the middle of the pocket here on Lamar, that could be something to watch for in terms of like a live betting opportunity. Touched on the red zone stuff. And again, it's a small sample size, but Seattle's got to figure it out if they're going to be legit or if we think they're going to be who they are. And the good news for Seattle, no defenses faced fewer red zone trips than they have this season, just 16 on the season. So that's great. They're keeping teams out of the red zone, but they're 30th in conversion rate allowed. 11 of those 16 trips is a not so nice 69%. Has resulted in a touchdown. So on the opposite side, no offense has taken more drives into the red zone this season than Baltimore with 34, and they've converted at the third highest clip in the league, almost 68%. So that's really what it comes down to. Seattle has got to keep them out of the red zone, and when they do, they got to turn it up. Hopefully use some of these new bodies on the new secondary that's just kind of healthy for the first time here for a little bit and start to kind of regulate these numbers and have them match up. So, if they're getting into the red zone and forcing a lot of field goals, then I think they're going to be in this game. If those are converting into, it's a handicap for all football games. If those are converting into touchdowns, it's going to be a long day for Seattle. So, all right, let's keep the train moving here. Dallas on the road in Philly. Philly -3 on FanDuel. 46 is the total. It's pretty much painted across the board there. Did not get a Dak versus Hurts matchup last year. We had Cooper Rush in for Dak in the week 6 matchup between these two teams. And they played on Christmas Eve, and it was Gardner Minshew for Philly. So I'm really looking forward to this one, Clark. We didn't get this one, kind of a, hey, Dallas just blew someone out. Philly just barely won. It was a little bit of Dallas love, not showing in the market necessarily, but just sentiment here, I think, is a little bit more pro Dallas than it would have been maybe, say, a week ago.
Yeah, definitely. We've been waiting for this matchup for 2 years, right? The healthy Eagles against the healthy Cowboys, and we finally get it. The Eagles last year faced a really easy schedule of opposing defenses and really capitalized against it. And this year has kind of been the same, so in terms of EPA per play on defense, the best defense they faced with the Jets at 9th, and they lost that game 20-14 with 3 picks. Every other team has been 15th, 20th, 23rd, 28th, 22nd, or 12th, which was the Vikings. So they really haven't faced a defense of the quality that Dallas brings to the table. And I have my concerns about, Hurts' mobility. Like he just looks a step slow out there with his knee injury. I have some concerns about, the way that Dallas plays defense. They want to like leave typically 4 guys back, play quarters coverage or whatever, and then get pressure with their front 7. And if they can bracket AJ Brown and kind of take away those deep shots, if they can push Devonta Smith towards the sideline, it's going to be really difficult for Jalen Hurts to consistently make plays. And with the way that they play offense, it's a lot of third down and shorts and a lot of converting those third down and shorts because they win the offensive line battle, whether it's running, brotherly shove, tush push, whatever, or just short outs, for 3-5 yards. Dallas Goedert. They're able to consistently do that. And I worry about them going up against a step up in class on defense, because those marginal third down conversions, if those stop working, can really, really come to a halt with the offense. But the problem is I'm not sure that the Cowboys are that good of a team yet. Like, I know that they've looked impressive in some of their games, but even against the Rams last week, they blew them out. But I was watching that game live, and it started with a sack, a run for 4 yards, and a sack on third down that was taken off the board by a bogus penalty. They get another first down, another sack. They ended up turning that drive into a touchdown, which was fine. Rams come back, almost score a touchdown, 10-3, and then it was pick six Stafford on just a miscommunication between him and Kupp, 17-3, and then they get a blocked punt for a safety, 19-3, and then they return that safety punt to the 13-yard line and score a 13-yard touchdown, 26-3. And it was like, whoa, I guess the Cowboys won this game. They're not really doing much. And that's kind of like the Giants game. So this is a Cowboys team that really can put it together, but has also looked really clunky at times. Like against the Cardinals, granted they had a bunch of offensive linemen missing. Against the Chargers, they didn't look all that impressive. And so as much as I'd love to back the Cowboys here, they have to be a really good team to beat the Eagles in Philadelphia. And that's kind of something that I'm wrestling with. I definitely lean Cowboys +3 because I think once you're getting out at the field goal and capturing all of the tight games, plus, pushing on a Cowboys loss by 3, I think that's the side that I lean. But I've also been lower on the Eagles consistently throughout the year than the market. And so, some things are causing me to pause in terms of, what am I missing? What is it that the market is capturing that I'm not? And I recognize the strength of the market and have to kind of accommodate that. So I'm not decided whether or not I'm playing it, but definitely lean towards the Cowboys in this one.
I like that breakdown. It's good. Connor, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's interesting because the Dallas Cowboys, like basically their metrics I have taken and just thrown out the window because I just don't think there's any value in basically anything they've done overall, because their neutral game script numbers, it's just littered with, metrics that are between 8th and 22nd in EPA, run D, EPA, everything is just doesn't matter what it is. It's average or below average, basically everything. But should we not count that they're blowing out teams? You know what I mean? Because every single, right. So they're 5-2, but they played in just one game, win or lose, with a final margin of 10 or fewer points. Their 2 losses came by 32 and 12. Their 5 wins have come by 40, 20, 35, 3, and then 23. So it's how much do we weigh all this? I'm personally really struggling with it. Usually there's 1 or 2 teams every year where I'm yeah, I just don't have a good read on this team. Last few years, it's been the Titans and the Raiders, I bet against them and always lose. This year, it's kind of the Cowboys, because I don't think that their running offense hasn't been all that particularly efficient, no matter the game script. Now they're running into a tough running defense in Philadelphia, who hasn't been playing as well as of late, but I think that's a lot of that has to do with not being fully healthy. I think Jalen Carter practiced full today, should be fully healthy in this spot, but now that puts a lot of pressure on Dak, and I just don't know, given what their offense has been doing right now, is that sustainable to rely on Dak to really carry this team? I think CeeDee Lamb could have a big day because he's moved it in the middle a lot, and that's kind of hypothetically the Eagles weak spot in their defense essentially is over the middle, and so that kind of interests me there. But then on the other side of the ball, this Eagles offense, I think should have some success running the ball, because we've seen the Cowboys struggle at certain times against the run, but they've also been dominant against the run at other times. So I think the Philadelphia is more physical than most of the teams that they've played. And I think that some of the runs that we saw from Arizona against them, and kind of some of the traps that they were running, was kind of interesting and could be something that Philly leverages here with DeAndre Swift, runs out of the shotgun and things of that sort instead of less traditional runs. So I really don't know. I would lean towards the under in this game just because I don't have a particularly good feel for either team scoring a bunch. It's literally 46 and a half. But the Cowboys are just a really, really tough team for me right now.
Yeah, I'm torn too. So you make a good point, because I do think it falls on Dak a lot, because I do think Tony Pollard thing just isn't happening so well. No matter the game script, as you mentioned, becomes a lot of pressure on Dak to get it done. Also, Philly, again, I don't want to make too much of a game against the Commanders defense that is, we should not be, making any judgments off of. But they scored 38 last week. They fumbled twice at the 5 or at the 1 even. So they're really close to hanging 52 on the road in the division against a team that seems to have play them really tight and have their number. What's the perception of the Eagles if they don't fumble one of their like brotherly shoves? And I think it was a Gainwell fumble. Like that's, again, 52 on the road in the division, even against the Commanders. It's a pretty strong statement in the NFL to do that no matter who the defense is. We were really close to Philly doing that last week. So I don't know. I just feel like they're maybe finding their legs offensively after a little bit of a slow start with new coordinator. Jalen Hurts not being great, not throwing the ball to AJ Brown for the first couple of games very much. That seems to like have been a pretty important like fulcrum point to the success of their season. Like, hey, let's just chuck the ball to AJ Brown a ton, and he's just been an absolute alpha. So I just worry about the perception of maybe what that would do to this game a little bit. So I don't have a great feel for it. I would probably lean over, to be honest, to go against Connor a little bit, or at least maybe have interest in the Philly team total. But at that point, wouldn't I just back Philly? So that's kind of my concern there too. So I'm at a loss, but that's probably my lean would be Philly in this spot, or at least the Philly, being successful offensively.
Silva, got out of his, whatever cave and was able to, put together some stuff for his matchups article there and compared Tony Pollard to Lamar Miller. And I thought that was just like the most accurate comparison I've seen ever, because Lamar Miller was like super efficient and was really good on limited touches, and then gets into a full-time role and just doesn't have the juice anymore. Like it's just getting that many touches consistently over the course of the season. Like it clearly, like he doesn't have the juice that he had before. And so maybe there are a lot of other factors, the offensive line isn't that good. Like, he's coming off of
a pretty major injury too. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. There's a surgery, but I mean, that just is what it is. Like he is not there right now. So maybe he's there next year. Maybe he can be better, but right now he's Lamar Miller 2.0.
Chase Edmonds.
I don't know. We'll see.
You're in on Tony Pollard. I don't know. I think he's kind of just like a massive jag. Like all the analytics say he's a jag right now.
It's tough.
Yeah, maybe.
If it's true, this is a problem. No, Dak, to credit to Dak's been playing really good football. He looks, good last week, and I just do think there's a lot of weight on him in this matchup if Tony Pollard continues to jag. That's problematic for Dak. All right, I'm excited to talk about this one. This has been an interesting matchup. We've seen a lot. We got it. Didn't get the matchup we were supposed to last year. Unfortunately, thankfully, DeMar Hamlin is okay. But Buffalo back in Cincinnati. This one's moved a little bit. Again, I shut my odds screen just before we started. I know there's a little bit of Josh Allen didn't practice news, and maybe this has fluctuated a little bit. Not too long ago, this was Cincinnati -1.5. 48.5 was the total. There were twos. Total had moved out to 49 in some spots. Just interested to see if this is fluctuating, probably right around there. I just don't think we get back to 3, though this was 2.5 in some spots earlier in the day. I'm going to give you the floor. Clark, this is, you've not been very pro Joe Burrow in the time that I've known you. And, I know you're often pro Bills as well, my Super Bowl team. But just interested to get your thoughts on this matchup, the Bills and Bengals, after what we saw last week with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, the Bengals are another team that I think my numbers seem to underrate relative to the market. It's difficult, right? Because they looked really good against the 49ers, like legitimately really good. Joe Burrow was making plays, looked like himself out there. And if the first half of the season was really just Joe Burrow, getting used to his mobility, getting that strength back, getting that confidence back, getting that timing back with his receivers, then I think it is right to kind of throw out some of that data. But the Bengals defense is materially worse than it's been in years past. And I'm not one to say, well, we got one game of Joe Burrow looking great, so I guess Joe Burrow is back to being an elite quarterback. I'm much more hesitant. Now, the Bills defense is really banged up, which doesn't help. So Joe Burrow will have some success here. But I thought that the market move was a little bit dramatic. It got all the way up to +3 for the Bills, which I grabbed. I was like, okay, I haven't figured out what I think about this game, but I'm grabbing that +3 because that's ridiculous. And sure enough, it's been bet back down to 2, 1.5, which I think is much more appropriate. Under the 3, it's a tight game, and my numbers like the Bills, but there is the element that the Bengals have really owned the Bills. And like in the playoff game, they were the clearly right side as 5.5-point underdogs from the get-go. They just dominated them in every facet of the game. And I don't think that, because two teams played each other once and we got a certain result, that result's going to happen every time. But I do think that there are some schematic things that the Bengals really do well that the Bills just have failed to stop time and again. Like even in the game that didn't finish when DeMar Hamlin got hurt, the Bengals came out firing in that game. And it was, a quarter and a half or whatever it was of domination by the Bengals. So I don't think it's just the one data point in the playoff game. I think it's a consistent thing. What the Bengals do is they make consistently positive gains where Joe Burrow is putting the ball in a place where receivers can catch it and lean forward or run forward for a couple more yards. And it just consistently picks up yards. And the Bills defense is like, we're going to play this zone. We're going to, try to get pressure with the front four and maybe play a little softer on the receivers. And so if you're able to do that, you can really move the ball against the Bills. And so that would be kind of my concern about getting involved under the 3. But in terms of, this should be a great game on Sunday Night Football. I'm really, really excited to watch it. I would bet either team at +3 because I just think it's another one of those tight games. But I haven't really come to ground on whether or not I would bet Bills money line. I don't have to decide now because I got in at +3, but it's one of those things that I'd be wrestling with in terms of, do I want to take the Bills money line +1.5 or just let it go and just enjoy the football game? It's kind of borderline for me. And I think staying away at that small number is probably the right call.
I think getting the 3 is pretty important. So I think, good job doing that. Cause I think you're probably right. I think the right move would be taking any of them, either the teams at +3. Here's my issue though, is we haven't had the Bills. Well, we haven't seen them face an elite offense since they lost Matt Milano, since they lost Daquan Jones, they lost Tre'Davious White back in like week 5. When you look at it, they've actually faced 3 of the worst offenses in the league in terms of like points per drive. Giants 32nd, Patriots 31st, Buccaneers 24th. So bottom teams. In that time frame, the Bills are 29th defensively in EPA per play. That is a problem. I still think we're getting the market shading the Bills a little bit, especially defensively, to who we thought they were coming into the season and who they were early in the season. That is not the team. Again, like you losing basically your best player at all 3 levels is a problem, and they just haven't really had to pay the piper for that yet. And I think that comes this week. Connor, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I played the over 48.5. I think it's 49.5. Yeah. I think you can play team total overs if you have a certain lean on the game. I think both those are fine because I think Clark's point about the Bengals defense not being very good is completely true, and that Josh Allen's just a guy who's able to basically keep his team in the game no matter what. I think Joe Burrow has been that guy, but he's, again, like the injury question makes me question that. We saw them, lose some pretty bad games at certain points this season already, just because I think his injury was not able to, let him do everything that he wants to do. But you hit the nail on that, I think, with the splits with the Bills defense. That's my biggest take here, is that they're not as good. I mean, the Patriots handled them and they were like borderline, like left for dead offense. And the Jaguars, if you guys remember that game, like the Jags, I believe, threw a pick in the end zone, and there was multiple times where they like just couldn't punch it in. They kicked a bunch of field goals, and they still scored 25 points. They like
fumbles in the red zone.
Yeah,
right. They could have scored 40, and I don't think anyone would have batted an eye based on how that game went. So I think that that's pretty interesting and worth noting. And then obviously the Bengals coming off of an awesome performance against the Niners here. I think it's all just like trending up. And then the Bills offense, though, I thought looked pretty good without Dawson Knox. They kind of went more of like a hurry up 11 personnel fully. We're like putting Gabe Davis in the slot a little bit more, like getting Dalton Kincaid involved a bunch. Like they're, I don't know, kind of finding their stride in some ways, I think, at least what I saw visually. So it may not have fully translated, but I thought that there were some really, really encouraging points there. So I like the over in this spot. Again, I think I'm more confident in Cincinnati's offense having success here. So if I had to make a bet right now, it'd probably be Cincinnati team total, but I think that the over or the Bengals are probably fine here as well.
Yeah, game over is probably a good look. And the number you got was fantastic. Cause I do agree. Like we're, kind of besmirching the Bills defense, but I don't have really any questions still about like 17 in blue is on the field for half the game. Like I still have a lot of faith in what the Bills can do. So it can be a spot to kind of fade the defenses. So I don't want I'm the opposite side of Clark on some of this stuff in terms of Joe Burrow. I am a Burrow apologist a little bit. Like I am very much, I drink the Joey B Kool-Aid for sure. I am 100% ready to be like, I don't care. I think we're going to timestamp pre and post buy Bengals for the rest of the season, in terms of like looking at their metrics and all that stuff. Because again, to do what he did, look, it's one of the best defenses in the league, 28-32 for 283 yards and 3 scores, like, 18% completion percentage over expected. They've shifted in a big, big way. And shout out to a friend of the show, Ben Solak, highlighted this in his article. They were really predictable. They basically were 99% shotgun early in the season because like they just couldn't, they wanted to get into things quicker. And that allowed Burrow to do that. They basically were really predictable. It was dink and dunk. It was, let's get, the ball out quickly to, just this low ADOT stuff to chase, and really couldn't get anything with T. Higgins. Last week against the Niners, even the first play of the game, under center, play action, absolute dart from Burrow, 77% shotgun rate. So a big shift. And again, like, yeah, sometimes you can run successfully out of the shotgun. They just hadn't been able to because there was really no threat of play action. They were able to run a little bit more even against San Francisco last week. Burrow extending plays. He scrambled 6 times for 43 yards. This is not what we saw early in the season. So I'm okay. This is not, again, it's football. We deal with small samples. I don't want to overreact in a lot of instances to a 1-game sample. Kind of okay being like, hey, this is who we've kind of seen them be for a number of years. And they showed it last week, and it's not who we saw for the whole entire early part of the season. And we had an injury, and like we had a data point as to why, and now we saw it a little bit. So I think the Bengals are maybe going to be a little bit more, at least offensively, who we thought they were coming into the season. So I'm in on Burrow. I think the over in the game is the right side, and I would take the Bengals under 3 in this one. I think it's going to be hopefully a great primetime game and kind of put a cap on these great matchups this week. So it's kind of where I'm at here. They're back in the AFC.
I know that Clark's going to absolutely hate this take, but I think that the best bet in the MVP market right now is Joe Burrow to win MVP at 20-1. The guys at the top are very fragile. So
no. He's not going to do enough to make up for how bad he was in the first half of the year.
He's still got 9 weeks, 8 weeks, and 10 games. I don't know, something like that. It's enough to get there. I think the memory is short enough that if he plays very well the next 8 weeks, that it's possible. I mean, I think the whole Tua MVP thing is tough, man. I think he's played awesome, but that's like, I have a really hard time getting there. And I love the Dolphins and I love Tua, and I really struggle to get there in terms of him being the MVP.
I'd rather have Tua than Burrow.
like on your team, or just like as MVP?
No, just as an MVP ticket.
At current market prices?
I don't know exactly what market prices are, but
it's like Tua is like plus 270, I think, maybe, and then Mahomes like plus 300. So, it's okay. Plus 400 Tua, plus 450 Hurts, plus 450 Mahomes, plus 550 Lamar, plus 1400 McCaffrey, plus 1600 Josh Allen, plus 20-1 Joe Burrow. That's what I'm saying. Is like, do you feel good about any of those guys? Give me your take first.
The rule is
any of them.
No, the rule on MVP markets is as soon as you read a running back, you can just disregard everyone after that.
That's fair. Okay, but seriously, any of those guys, like, you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. Like Lamar.
I mean, Josh Allen was after a running back. I mean, Josh Allen and Joe Burrow are the enticing names in that, right?
What was
the
Allen?
Bills get back on. Allen was what, 16?
16-1. Yeah, 16.
Oh yeah, I take Allen 16-1 over everyone else there. Yeah, current prices.
Okay.
They've got a tough schedule, but if they win their division, this game is a big one to start with. They beat the Bengals and then go on to win the division, beat the Dolphins again. I think Josh Allen's right back in the conversation.
Yeah. I do think that there's enough meat in these 4 games in particular that are going to shift some of these markets, right? These are the top of the MVP 100%. Tickets. These are coach of the years. These are like, first place in the conference, division winners. Like, these are very much impactful games for this weekend in basically all the markets. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see where those kind of pop out back on Monday. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence at 20. Like, I mean,
yeah, I'll take that over.
Just like they would have to play. I don't know. Like, they're winning games, but I don't think he's playing like up to what his like capabilities. That's what I would say.
If Burrow wins MVP, you can clip all these little clips of me saying, "I'll take them over Burrow." Take them over Burrow.
Burrow MVP, Seahawks Super Bowl. It's all going down here, baby.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on the board? Like you said, I want to talk about something actually, and then I'll get your guys' thoughts. I talked to Connor about this briefly the other day, and we still don't have word on what's going on in the Rams quarterback room.
We do though.
Did we? Did I break down the show?
Well, I mean, Josh Norris today, I was listening to the Underdog Stats film, breakdown. He said that it was like a little clip. It's like a 20-second clip here that I was listening to. He said that someone told him that Stafford is not going to play for this week and into the bye, or obviously in the bye, and then they were going to reevaluate things after the bye.
I'd be stunned if Stafford played. I mean, just personally, I mean, look, it's not a fracture, but it's your thumb on your throwing hands. Look at they had talked about that when it first happened to Fields. You might be okay. Here we are again. We have our third, Tyson Bagent starts. Your thumb gripping the football. What are we doing here? What are the Rams?
I mean, I got an alert that was they're not putting him on IR. It's if they're considering IR, he's probably not playing this week.
So we have and I know the Packers do not instill any confidence in us whatsoever, but the Rams with Brett Rippon are going into Green Bay at 3. I mean, I feel like that should be 3.5 everywhere. I feel like it should be high. I mean, I just think I know the Packers.
Yeah, and I think it'll get there. When Stafford's confirmed out, I think it'll get there.
So that's on the board. That's very interesting to me. I haven't bet it yet. I wanted to talk about it on the show with you guys today. It is it's moved. It's a 3. Did you? Okay. It's 3, minus 150, minus 120. I just think I think it's a mistake because I don't think it's Matthew Stafford, right? I feel like part of it is really underrating how awesome Matthew Stafford is and has been this season in terms of what he's been able to do. Some of that all 22 stuff post game is football porn. He's been outstanding.
Yeah.
And I know that Puka's been good and Cooper Kupp is good and they can elevate, but not that much. The offensive line is bad. And again, that defense is starting to show who I thought they were very much coming into the season. So again, I know that we're laying points with Jordan Love, but again, 3 at home, I think they should be able to run the football. Packers minus 3 is a play that I will make now after the show with a little bit of passive stamp of approval from for you guys. What else do you like here, Clark? Anything else on the board for you?
It's a tough week. I mentioned a teaser leg with the Dolphins. I paired it with the Saints. They're currently laying 7.5 at home against Chicago. I actually like the spread at 7.5. I mean, I don't love betting 7.5 as a number just because if it drops down to 7, that's just way more valuable. So it might be worth waiting. But I think this is the Saints team is kind of getting together, right? People don't recognize how banged up the Saints have been in terms of not just injuries, but suspensions. Derek Carr's shoulder injury, not only did it knock him out of some playing time, but when he was playing, he didn't look right. And I felt like last week, the offensive line was healthy. Derek Carr was slinging it downfield. This is the offense that we anticipated seeing from the Saints. They got Alvin Kamara back. They're using Taysom Hill effectively. Rashid Shaheed and Michael Thomas and Chris Olave is actually one of the most underrated trios of receivers in the league. And then their defense is stout. They can defend the run with their front guys and then play really good man defense on the back end. So you have to be really good to beat them. You have to be really good at man coverage. I don't think that Tyson Bagent throwing to these Bears receivers is the key to unlocking this Saints defense. So I think this is a situation where at home the Saints kind of get it back on track. They move to 5-4 and kind of set their eyes on the division win with how easy the rest of their schedule is. So spread or tease, I don't mind either one with the Saints, but the way I played it was to tease them down with the Dolphins.
Connor, what do you got your eye on?
Yeah, no, that actually also just moved. It looks like we're getting 8.5 at Circa, 9 at Pinnacle at this point on the Saints.
On Saints?
Yeah, it just moved mid show. Because I was seeing 7.5 too. But I mean, I think you're on the right side there. It's just when you think in handicap how these teams match up, it just seems like it's going to be a complete disaster. I got some props circled in that game for sure. I love my unders, so I got plenty of those circled on the Bears side. A couple that I played otherwise, I think I like the Browns. We're looking at minus 7.5 here against the Cardinals. Their defense is dominant, getting basically a backup quarterback here for the Cardinals. Beyond that, getting Deshaun Watson back, which I think is, I don't know, maybe a net neutral right now, but in the long term, probably a net positive, hopefully. And so I don't know, I think it's just a little bit of value there before the 10. And then I think the Chargers and Jets game, I feel like this is I know trap lines don't exist and everything. I know that's not even a real thing, but I don't know. I kind of feel like this game should be more than 3. I don't know. Is that like a crazy thing to say? Like this is going to 100%. You're going to see those stupid fucking tweets like, 98% of the bets are on, whatever, the Jets, and 80% of the money's or 90% of the money's bets are on the Chargers, and 90% of the money's on the Jets, something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm a square for liking the Chargers. Clark, you got any takes on that game? Because I bet it, but I
think it could get to 3.5. The Jets offensive line is a problem. I mean, they're really, really banged up, and Zach Wilson under pressure is just not a thing that you want to have a bunch of money on. So a lot of it depends on kind of how they're dressing their offensive line. I saw Dwayne Brown maybe might get activated this week. At least his practice window opened. They went through 3 centers last week and fumbled snaps, and it was a complete mess in the rain. So I think anyone who watched that game and how badly the Jets offensive line played is going to have hesitation backing the Jets. And I think that's going to push this up to 3.5, at which point I could see some buyback just on the principle that the Chargers offense isn't good enough to be laying 3.5 against the Jets defense on the road. So yeah, I think it's going to be one of those games that kind of, if you want 3.5 on the Jets, I think you'll get it. And if you want 3 on the Chargers, I think you should take it now. Because I think both of those numbers will appear at some point.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. Yeah, all I had was the Packers one. That's like, it just doesn't feel well. It doesn't feel right. So Chargers square, play by the number. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Connor's right.
The Jets defense is really good. That's going to be something I lean pretty heavy to in the prop market going forward, because they didn't play. Sauce and DJ Reed didn't play for a couple of weeks, and so like their numbers are. I think that's actually one of the best things to capitalize on just overall. Is like when guys don't play, and like it skews a lot of perception, and like people haven't really factored that in. Maybe not as much in the sides and totals market, but definitely in the prop market. So
well, you see it earlier in the week, I think, before the market matures, and I think that's why we got under money in this Chargers Jets game. It was 41.5. I think now it's down to 40. I think that was both. Wait, this Jets defense is really good, and wow, this Jets offensive line is really banged up. And I think those two things combine into wanting to play the under, because this has, Chargers 20-3 written all over it. If the Chargers defense shows up, and I think that's just going to be an easy win for the under if that happens. So, all
right, good stuff as always. Again, take advantage. Promo code YouTube at 4for4.com/plans. Pick up a betting subscription, get access to all of our plays, all the articles, everything that we do at 4for4. Again, still if you're playing DFS, TJ and Daigle do a great job doing all that, rocking the NBA stuff. I tailed some NBA stuff tonight. I'm excited about guys who are doing a great job there too. Again, all the articles and all the stuff that we do too at 4for4. So hit us with a thumbs up, like, subscribe before you leave. Don't forget to come back on Friday, again, 3 p.m. Eastern. Connor, myself, and High Slot for props. So for Clark and Connor, I'm Ryan. We'll see you all next time. Thanks, everybody. Yeah!